By becoming lover of God, you become eternally happy. That is Krishna consciousness.
Target? You got half an hour. Okay. Would you like to start out? Maybe Patrick, you could be you could keep a track on, we say in Danish, ordstyre. What is that?
Order.
Yeah.
What was my question? I'm just thinking of it. But does God make every action you do, does God make there be a purpose for every action that you do?
Well, very interesting question. So, God, He has created you with something called free will. And you have free will because with free will, then you can express love. If you didn't have free will, there would be no question of love. Does that make sense? Yeah. So everything that you do, it is not that God, He is working you like a puppeteer, like a puppet master, and that He's planning your every move. No, but He created you. And then He gave you free will, and now He's just looking and seeing what will you do with it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, that you're saying that God created us, but what if, and that God loves us and we love God, but what if some people don't love God?
Yeah, so that's why we're here. This world is like a school. So when you go to school, is it because you know everything already? No. You're supposed to get an education, right? So we're here in this world, and we are actually supposed to gradually learn and grow and develop. And when we appreciate what is, and we get that from experience, you will, through life, you will learn that what brings the most happiness is relationships. The relationships that you have with your family members, with your friends and like that. This is so much more important than career and money and these kind of things. So you learn that through experience, that life is all about relationships. And as that understanding that grows and it matures, then at one point in the evolution of the soul, then you will come to this point that I should invest into my relationship with God. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like when you're in school, what grade are you in? Sixth grade. So sometimes then you're looking at like the second graders and you're thinking, my God, these kids, they don't know anything, right? But you're very patient with them because you understand, hey, I was there just a few years ago. And then you try to help them, like with what you have learned. So in that way, this world is like a school. And it's not that there's, some people they think that this world is like a very competitive environment, that it's me against the world, I have to get on top. That's from a very materialistic paradigm. If you think if your happiness is based on like success and things like that, but if your happiness is based on relationship and ultimately a relationship with God, then you're like the good kid in school who wants to get a nice education, and then at the same time you want to make sure that there's a nice environment for everyone so that they can learn, grow, and develop. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's completely fine that there are some people who don't love God. But then those who love God, they look upon those and think, poor souls. Let's help them out. Does that answer your question? Good.
What are the facts of reincarnation is real?
What are the facts of reincarnation is real?
What are the facts?
Evidence.
You want proof? Okay. So it can be, in one sense, a little bit difficult to prove how the soul, it goes from one body to another body. But just look at your own life and see how your body is. Hey, Zoe, please look me in the eyes when I'm answering your question, because I want to make sure that you're actually hearing. So your body is made up of trillions of cells. Did you know that? And so most of your cells, they are living for quite a short time. Some of your cells, they're living for just a few weeks. Those of yourself that have the longest lifespan, they can live up to 7 years. But that means that within a period of 7 years, then every single cell in your body will have died and been replaced. So that basically means that the body that you had 7 years ago, there's nothing left. And the body that you have in 7 years from now will be completely different from the body that you have today. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So isn't that reincarnation? Re means again, incarna means into the flesh, and ion, it's a process. So the process of again entering into the flesh. So aren't you a person who is continuously entering into new flesh? In one sense, yes, right? And then also just this fact that you can see that you are undergoing change. Krishna, he says, Kaumaram Yauvanam Jara, from boyhood to youth to old age. Also from girlhood to youth to old age. Applies for both genders. We can see that the body is changing. So the fact that you can see that the body is changing, that must mean that you were present before, during, and after the change. Does that make sense? So that's just within this one life. Now, we could go into scientific arguments about how consciousness is different from matter and how the nature of consciousness is eternal. But that would be a little bit like, we could talk for another 2 hours about that. But I'll just give you a quick example that there's one professor in the University of Virginia. Actually, he's dead now. No, he's not dead. He reincarnated now. But he's called Ian Stevenson. And he spent 45 years of his career as a psychiatrist studying young children who had memories from their previous lives. And he compiled a folder with more than 2,000 cases of children who could remember their previous life in detail that is completely unexplainable if it were not for the fact that they had been that person in a previous life. So Zoe, have you ever done a YouTube marathon? That is that you go on YouTube and then you just search something and then you just watch one video after another. You can, like, when you go home, if you want to know more about this, then try going into a little bit of a rabbit hole. Try to search out children who remember their previous life, or like reincarnation stories, or something like that. And you will find that there is so much evidence. But we could spend the next half an hour just answering your question. But I hope that you got a little bit of an idea. Was that an answer? Okay. Thank you so much for a very nice and intelligent question.
Gabriel?
If God made us, then what made God?
If God made us, then who made God? That is a very, very good question. And actually, there's a word in Sanskrit which is called achincha. And that means that it cannot be understood. So it's again like, I cannot intellectually understand how God is eternal because I'm trying to understand something that's unlimited with my limited intelligence. I'm trying to measure the moisture in the room with the measuring tape, and it doesn't work. But the funny thing is, Gabriel, that there are basically only two possible explanations. Either everything came from nothing, or everything came from God. Those are the two explanations. There's no third option. Either everything came from God, or everything came from nothing. So now you look at these two, and then you see which of these options is more sensible. Have we ever seen in the history of human science something coming from nothing? Have we ever seen, if you were to observe something just spontaneously arise out of nothing, congratulations, you would be a pretty good candidate for the Nobel Prize of Physics. Because so far it has never been observed in the history of human science. Have we ever seen life coming from non-life? No? Never. But have we seen something coming from something else? And have we seen life coming from life? Yes. So you basically have these two options. Either everything was created by God or everything came from nothing. And to me at least, it just makes a whole lot more sense that everything comes from God. But exactly where God he came from, sorry, I cannot explain to you. I hope that you're satisfied still. Okay.
Does that mean that that God controls who is born?
If God he controls who is born,
Does he create all of us?
he created all of the souls. But the soul is born into a situation. You're born into a specific family, into a nation, into a specific period in time. There's so many circumstances that you are born into. So all those circumstances, they are dependent on the previous activities from your previous life.
Oh, okay.
So this is karma. So in one sense you can say that God, he is placing you there, but it is not that he's just doing it randomly. No, everything is very organized. Everything's happening according to rules.
And how do you know what your previous life is?
How do you know what your previous life is? That's a very good question. And actually, luckily, you don't. Could you just move a little bit aside so I can see who I'm talking to here? Thanks. So, actually, funny thing, I mentioned this Ian Stevenson, who's been researching kids who remember their previous life. Would you like to be able to remember your previous life? Actually, most people who remember their previous life, they're very, very troubled. Because they have a very hard time dealing with the new reality that they find themselves in. And actually, usually the parents of those children, they think, this sucks. I cannot have a proper relationship to my child because the child just goes, you're not my mom, you're not my dad. I have my old mom and dad somewhere in who knows, Japan or something like that, right? And they have a very, very hard time identifying as the person that they were now born as because they still identify with their previous life. So actually, most of these children, they actually from early childhood, they're often very, very troubled. But some, they can remember their previous life. And there's also something, have you heard about hypnosis?
Yeah.
So there's an interesting science called regression therapy. So a good hypnotist, he will be able to work and manipulate with your brain waves. So he can take you into, right now you're in a thinking state. This is called beta brainwaves. So right now you're thinking. As you become more peaceful and meditative, then you get down to what's called alpha, where you're more feeling rather than thinking. Then you can go even lower. You can go into theta and delta states. And at these states, then things start becoming very, very dreamy. And you're in a state of hypnosis. And so a hypnotist, he will then, when you're in that state of theta or delta, he will be able to take you back to early memories of your life. He will be able to tell you to go back to your, who knows, your 5 years old birthday or your early childhood or something like that. And then you will, because that's all loaded in your subconscious mind. All these memories, you've forgotten about them, but they're there. So he can take you back. And as those memories come up, then the hypnotist can go, well, try going back even further, try going back even further, try going back even further. Then it sometimes happens that when they do this, suddenly you have an overlap. suddenly you jump from early childhood into a previous life. And these regression therapists, they very often have the experience that their patients, all of a sudden, they change language. Suddenly, maybe they start talking whatever, like German or Hebrew or something like that. Because all of a sudden, they're back in a previous life. All of a sudden, they can start pulling out memories from that previous life. And again, in great detail. So anyway, but it's not so important. Like knowing about your previous life, you know, like our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he was one time asked, who were you in your previous life? And you know what he said? He said, I was a fool. And he said, the proof is that I got this body. Because if I had actually been wise, I would not have taken birth here in this world again. So don't bother too much. Don't overthink like, oh, maybe I was like Albert Einstein or Leonardo da Vinci or Napoleon Bonaparte. Or no, just forget about it. You're here. Focus not so much on the past, but focus on the present. Where are you right now, and where would you like to go? Okay?
Yeah, my question was, can you be reincarnated from an animal to a human?
Yes, you can be reincarnated from an animal to a human. I mentioned free will. So free will, that is very much the privilege of the human being. Does a cat have a lot of free will? No, it's mostly just it's just acting on instinct. So as a human being, then you have free will, and with your free will, then you can generate, you know about karma? So karma, that means action and reaction. Now, for example, let's say that a cat, it chases and it eats a mouse. Does the cat get bad karma?
Yes.
No, actually not. Because it's not acting on free will, it's acting on instinct. So the soul gets karma when we are acting on free will. So since the animals, they're not acting on free will, they are not building karma, they're outliving their karma. So it's kind of like if you are in prison, then you just wait. And at one time, then you have finished your sentence and you'll get out of prison, right? So in the same way, when the soul misuses its free will, then you become imprisoned in the lower species of life. And then as you outlive your term, experiencing so much karma as an animal, a lot of suffering, you will be born and then you will get sick and you will die many times. So after outliving all of your bad karma, then you're back to human being. And then again you have free will. So it happens automatically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You said it wasn't random how we're born, and you said it's based our current life is based off of our past life, for our bad actions we did, yeah. So I was wondering, what were the first humans like? How were they made? Since they didn't have a past life, was it random?
So the first humans, now we have to look at the world through a little bit of a different lens. Because if what is described in the Bhagavad-Gita, you don't have, there's two concepts of time, and one is called linear time, that time moves in a line. Another one is called cyclical time. I hope that these are not too complicated terms for you. So let's say, for example, linear time, you have a beginning, and then time goes, and then you have a present moment, and then you have the future. That's linear time. Cyclical time is that there was never a beginning, and there will be no end, and in that way time moves in a cycle. So before this universe, there was another universe. And before that universe, there was another universe. And so there has always been existence. There has always been souls who were living out their karma. So there is no such thing as the first human being. There has always been souls caught in the cycle, exhibiting free will. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But very, very thoughtful, very intelligent question. Thank you very much for that.
Can your past life be in the present? So could my past life be where I am now, in
No.
time, or is it before this time?
So that's a good question. Can your past life be in the present?
Yeah.
Could you have several lives going on at once, and could they overlap? No. The soul is constricted, it's confined within time and space. One place at a time. So, but again, time moves in a cycle, so you could experience the same period in history in perhaps a few million years from now, once the cycle it has made a full rotation.
Oh, okay. So in a few videos we watched when we were learning Hinduism in a class, it was said that Vishnu, in his stomach, a plant grew, and then Brahma was there, and then he said to his sons that to make children. But if there was another universe, why couldn't Brahma not just put those people already like inside Earth?
So that's quite a technical question, but you see, like, each universe in one sense is separate. So it's not that you can really just pull souls from one to the other. Of course, Krishna, he could do that, but that's not something for Brahma to do.
If you can go from animal to human, could you then go from human to animal?
Yes. If you can go from animal to human, can you go from human to animal? Yes, definitely. And again, just think about it. We talked about this, it's about consciousness. So would you agree to that there are, when you look around at the human family, then you see human beings who are more developed and you see people who are less developed. Would it be completely unreasonable to say that there are in fact some human beings who are a little bit living in an animalistic state of consciousness? For example, let's say we have some people who are very, very like selfish and violent. We have some people who are completely like uncontrolled. So that's an animalistic state of consciousness. So if you live in an animalistic state of consciousness, then, well, that's what you're going to get in your next life. Just as, for example, when you go shopping for clothes, right? Then you buy your clothes according to your tastes, what you like to wear. So in that same way, you can say that the soul is kind of shopping for bodies based on its consciousness, its likes and its dislikes. So it makes a lot of sense, right? Because some people, they like, if your greatest pleasure in life, let's say red meat, some people, they really just like a good steak. And then Krishna, he says, okay, great, you become a tiger or something like that. You become a wolf, and you can have completely red steak. Yeah. So many different kinds of consciousness, and you get a body accordingly.
So Krishna, does he have control over all the human beings on the planet, or does he have control over only some of them?
If Krishna, he has control over all human beings or just some of them. In one sense, Krishna, he can control everything, but he chooses not to. Again, he gave us free will, and then he's just saying, okay, Arush, I will give you some free will. Let me just see what you will do with it. Just as, for example, very interesting, if your father, he will give you some pocket money, and then he will see, maybe you're not conscious of that, but your father, he will give you some pocket money, and then he will think, I wonder what he will use it for. Will he save up for that computer that he would really, really like? Or will he just go and buy snacks? What will he do with it? So it's kind of like the same way. Krishna, he invests this free will into you, and then he sees, what will you do with it? And then at the same time, then he's such a good parent that when you do something wrong, well, then it comes with a price, because then you get some karma. So karma, that's actually not just meant to punish us. That's meant to make us realize when we've done something wrong so that we can learn from it.
You said that a soul goes into a body, so you said that what to do with your body is like to attain Krishna consciousness. So what form do the souls take when they reach Krishna?
That is a really good question. Okay, so let me just repeat that. So we get a body according to our consciousness. So what kind of body do you get? What kind of body does the soul get when you are in a state of Krishna consciousness?
So like when you after you die, but your Krishna consciousness is really high and you go to Krishna's planet.
That's a really good question. Really good question. So what kind of body do you get when you go to Krishna's planet? So, okay, first of all, before answering that question, most of you said that you believe in God, but there's also some who don't believe in God. So those of you who don't believe in God, let's just say, just for argument's sake, let's just accept the premise that God, He exists, just for a moment. So would it make sense if God, He exists, that there is a place that He likes to be? Just as, for example, you all have a place where you like to be, right? Where you like to spend your time. There's a place where you like to be with your friends and play around and chill and relax. So if you were God, would you not then make an amazing place where you could just live and hang out and be? Yeah, makes sense, right? So that is called in different kind of languages. It's known by different names. For example, we will talk in English about the kingdom of God or heaven. In Sanskrit, then we talk about Vaikuntha, which means the place where there is no anxiety. So in the kingdom of God, in Vaikuntha, where Krishna is living, it's described that the souls, they can go there and they can actually have a relationship with God. So the kind of body that you will get in the kingdom of God is a body that is according to the relationship that you have with God. You can be a friend of God, you can be a servant of God, you can be an admirer, a passive worshiper of God, but there's so many different kind of relationships. What all these bodies have in common, just as our bodies, they are made of, have you noticed? It's made of bone and blood and flesh, and boys, please pay attention. So our bodies, they're made of these gross physical elements, right? Bone, blood, fat, flesh, all these things. But the soul, the body of the soul in the spiritual world is made up of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So Sat means that it is eternal, Chit means that it's fully conscious, and Ananda means that it's completely happy. So whatever body that you have in the spiritual world, the form may vary, but all the forms are eternal, happy, and full of wisdom. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So we just have a few minutes before serving lunch, and I was thinking it would be great to take the time to do a little bit of a quick meditation. Are you up for a quick meditation? Yeah.
By becoming lover of God, you become eternally happy. That is Krishna consciousness.
Because when we're doing meditation, then the brain is very much involved. It is about the brain and it is about the heart. It is about our thoughts and it's about our emotions. So when you're meditating, you're working with your thoughts and you're working with your emotions. And in one sense, actually, you are training your thoughts and you're training your emotions. And like we said, our life's quality is dependent not so much on our circumstance, but on our consciousness. Yes, nice, someone paid attention. So, you can actually train your emotions. Let's say, for example, would any one of you like to experience more gratitude in life? Hands up, show of hands. Who would like to experience more gratitude? Who would like to experience more happiness? Positivity, optimism. What about love? No? What about stress? What about, trick question. What about hatred? No, please don't. What about anxiety, depression, loneliness? So now you're sitting and laughing. So this is just proving my point that some emotions we like very much and some emotions we don't like so much. So actually when you're meditating, then you are spending time just with your thoughts and your emotions. And then you can see what's actually my present state. When I'm trying to meditate, please sit up straight. Because otherwise then all the other kids, they will just also want to make a fool of themselves. And then nobody's concentrating, and then nobody's going to learn anything. So, working with your thoughts and working with your emotions. When you're distracted, when you're sitting and trying to meditate, but then you are thinking about so many other things, that's actually good. It's good that you are getting distracted, because that's giving you feedback. That's letting you know, where are my thoughts? Where are my thoughts and what are my present emotions and how can I change them? So, for example, we use a mantra. And please say after me, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Rama Rama.
Rama.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Very good. I'm almost thinking that you were all yogis in a previous life. Let's try one more time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Rama Rama.
Rama Rama.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
And it's already working. I see you sitting and smiling, becoming so happy. So, these words are actually the names of God in the Sanskrit language. So when we meditate, there are many ways that you can meditate. You can meditate on your breath. You can meditate on like a point where you are fixating your gaze, where you're looking. You can meditate on a feeling, a sensation of peacefulness, love, or gratitude. There's so many things that you can use to anchor, that you can use to concentrate your thoughts and your emotions. But what we are using is the name of God. So, and that's pretty cool, because you do several things at the same time. When you are speaking the name of God, then you are letting God know, hey, and here's my good friend Madan Gopal, and another good friend Anton. And they are just now carrying in the pots with all the amazing food that you're going to have in just a minute. But first, let's do our meditation. So what we do when we speak the name of God, that naturally makes us think about God. And then when you say the name of God, then try to say it with love. Try to let God know that you care. So for example, do you see there's a difference? If for example I would say, Patrick, or I say, Patrick, there's a difference, right? If I say your name with enthusiasm and joy, Or maybe I even say it like, oh, Patrick, like, I really miss you. I miss you so thank you so much for coming again. It's been so long time since I saw you last time. So if you put some emotions into the pronunciation of a name, then that person will appreciate, isn't it? So when we are meditating on the name of God, we are actually trying to catch the attention of God. How cool is that? You are spending time just sitting and trying to connect. And that's actually what's called yoga. Yoga means that you connect with God. And then at the same time, while you are doing that, then you're training your thoughts and your emotions. So try to, when you're meditating, try to fill up your heart with gratitude, with thankfulness. Wow, Krishna, thank you so much that you have created me. Thank you so much that I get to exist, that I get to experience life. We should be grateful, right? Isn't life an amazing gift that we've been given? So how about this? Let's try to say thank you, Krishna, by pronouncing his names with fixed concentration, and then try to put a little bit of love into it. Are you ready? Okay, so everyone together, please just follow me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. And then
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And then 3 more times very loudly with a lot of love. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Very nice, very nice. So, I hope that you all had a very nice experience. I hope that you feel that you got your questions answered and that you all learned something. So just quickly to sum up. So, our consciousness is not so much dependent on our circumstance, but on our consciousness. And we are not the body, but the soul. And if the sun ray is warm and light, the sun must be
Warm and bright.
So if the soul is a living being, then God must be a living being. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for paying very good attention.